$47 million, 300,000 victims, 4 years. And the man responsible wasn't hiding offshore. He wasn't running from authorities in another country. He wasn't even hiding at all. He was sitting 3 feet from his manager, drinking coffee from a mug that said "World's Okayest Coworker," answering emails, attending meetings, mentoring junior analysts, and quietly, methodically, selling the complete financial identities of 300,000 real people to a criminal network that stretched across 4 states. His name was Jason. He was 38 years old, 11 years at the same bank, outstanding performance reviews, his manager's go-to guy. And by the time anyone noticed something was wrong, $47 million had already moved through one of the most invisible insider fraud operations federal investigators had ever documented. This is how he built it. This is who it destroyed. And this is how a single careless WhatsApp screenshot ended everything. Jason grew up in a quiet Midwestern suburb, the kind of town where nothing dramatic happens, where people go to school, get jobs, and build lives that look almost identical to their parents. His father worked at a distribution warehouse. His mother was a dental hygienist. They weren't rich. They weren't struggling. They were steady. And steady, for a long time, was enough. Jason was quietly gifted with computers, not in a flashy way. He wasn't building apps at 14 or winning coding competitions. He just understood systems, how they connected, where they were fragile, what happened when you pushed them in ways they weren't designed for. He got an IT degree from a state college. Nothing Ivy League, nothing remarkable on paper. But he interviewed well. He was calm under pressure. And 6 weeks after graduation, he walked into a regional bank's technology division and started a job that would define the next 15 years of his life. 11 years later, he was a senior systems analyst. He managed database infrastructure. He maintained access controls. He handled system audits. And he had something that most people in that building didn't fully appreciate: broad, deep, largely unmonitored access to customer data. Names, addresses, social security numbers, account balances, credit histories, transaction records, the complete financial identity of hundreds of thousands of people, available to him every single working day as a routine part of his job. His salary was $74,000 a year. He had a mortgage, 2 kids in middle school, a car payment. Life was fine, but fine has a way of feeling like not enough, especially when someone shows you a different version of what's possible. We'll call him Victor. Jason had known Victor for years. Same neighborhood growing up, stayed loosely in touch through mutual friends and social media. They weren't close, but they weren't strangers either. Victor moved differently than Jason did. Newer car, better watch. Vague answers whenever anyone asked what he actually did for work. Jason never pushed. In the spring of Jason's 10th year at the bank, Victor pulled him aside after a backyard barbecue. "You work with customer data, right? Account info, credit profiles, SSNs?" Jason said yes. "That data is worth serious money to certain people. You'd never pull anything big. Small exports, routine looking, nobody would ever know." Jason said no. 2 months later, Victor brought it up again. Jason said no again. 3 months after that, after an unexpected furnace replacement, a transmission repair, and an orthodontist telling him his daughter needed $6,000 worth of work, Jason didn't say no. The first transfer was 500 records, names, addresses, account numbers. It took Jason 40 minutes on a Tuesday afternoon. Completely routine looking on any access log. 2 days later, Victor handed him $3,000 cash in a gym bag. $3,000. 40 minutes of work. Jason told himself it was a one-time thing. You already know it wasn't. Jason was disciplined enough to know that speed kills. He had spent 11 years inside the bank's audit systems. He knew exactly what triggered flags: bulk downloads, off-hours access, large file exports outside normal workflow patterns. So he did none of that. What he built instead was what investigators would later call a slow extraction model. Every single working day, not weekly, not monthly, daily, Jason manually pulled between 40 and 60 customer records. He buried each export inside legitimate work tasks, routine database maintenance, system performance queries, nothing that would stand out in any access log reviewed by any human or automated system. He saved everything to an encrypted USB drive kept in his desk drawer. Every few days, transfer to Victor through an encrypted file-sharing platform. 40 records a day sounds small. Over 4 years of working days, it's more than 300,000 records. Victor's network weaponized that data across multiple operations simultaneously. Synthetic identity fraud, combining real social security numbers with fabricated names and addresses to build fraudulent credit profiles from scratch. Credit card cloning, using verified account data to manufacture duplicate cards that passed real-time authorization checks. Loan fraud, submitting applications under stolen identities with clean credit histories, targeting amounts just under automatic review thresholds. Dark web resale, selling fresh, verified, currently active customer data to other criminal networks at premium prices. The total value generated across all connected operations, as traced by federal investigators, was $47 million. Jason's personal cut over 4 years, approximately $2.1 million. Paid in cash, cryptocurrency, occasionally prepaid Visa gift cards in batches. He didn't buy anything flashy. He paid off his mortgage early. He maxed out 529 college savings accounts for both kids. He kept driving the same Ford F-150 he'd had since 2016. From the outside, he looked exactly like what he had always appeared to be, a stable, unremarkable, hardworking family man. Stop for a second, because $47 million is a number. And numbers are easy to hear without really feeling them. Behind every one of those 300,000 records was a person living their life, completely unaware that their financial identity had been packaged, sold, and was being actively used against them. Patricia was 61 years old, retired after 34 years teaching 4th grade, never missed a payment in her life, 800 credit score. She received a letter one morning. 3 credit cards had been opened in her name. Combined balance, $34,000. All maxed out, none of them hers. It took her 22 months, 4 legal disputes, and more phone calls than she could count to restore what had been taken. She described it as feeling like someone stole my name, and I had to spend 2 years proving I still owned it. Marcus was 29, first-generation college graduate, spent 3 years saving to open a small landscaping business, applied for a small business loan, rejected. Fraud markers on his credit history from identity theft he didn't even know had happened. By the time he understood why, the loan window had closed. His business plan sat in a folder for another 2 years. 2 people. Out of 300,000, the fraud didn't happen to a balance sheet. It happened to them. For 4 years, the system held. Jason was careful. Victor was experienced. The network was compartmentalized. Then Victor made a decision Jason had no visibility into and no control over. He brought someone new into the operation. Younger, hungry, not careful. After a successful transaction, this new member sent a message in a small WhatsApp group. 6 people total. He was showing off. The message included a screenshot of a transaction record. He thought it demonstrated how clean and untraceable the operation was. It demonstrated the opposite. The screenshot contained a specific data pattern, particular field structures, a specific sequence of account identifiers, a formatting signature, consistent with records exported from a single institutional source using a single type of database system. What this new member had no way of knowing, one person already in that group was under active federal investigation for a separate fraud case. His device was under a court-authorized monitoring order. The screenshot was flagged within 48 hours. Federal investigators began working backward through the data. The field structure pointed to a specific category of banking infrastructure. Cross-referencing known fraud transactions against source data patterns narrowed the field significantly. 6 months of quiet, careful investigative work later, they had a match. 1 access point, 1 login ID, 4 years of consistent daily exports. Jason's. Federal investigators spent several months building the case in complete silence. They did not alert the bank. They did not alert Jason. They watched. They obtained 4 years of access logs. They mapped every record Jason had touched. They cross-referenced his exports against fraud transactions documented across multiple states and financial institutions. What emerged was a picture of extraordinary patience and extraordinary damage.
And here is the painful irony of how Jason got caught. The same discipline that had kept him invisible for 4 years, the slow, consistent daily rhythm of 40 to 60 records had created a perfectly documented, perfectly consistent forensic trail. His caution had become his evidence. He was arrested on a Thursday morning, at home, before he left for work. His manager found out the same day everyone else did, when federal agents arrived at the bank with a warrant. The federal indictment included charges of wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, unauthorized computer access, and money laundering conspiracy. Jason faced 23 counts. He pleaded guilty 8 months later, cooperating with investigators in exchange for a reduced sentence. He received 19 years in federal prison, $2.1 million in restitution ordered, though investigators noted that tracing and recovering the full $47 million in downstream fraud losses remained, in their words, an ongoing and largely unresolved process. Victor was indicted separately. His network faced dismantlement across 3 states. The bank, never named publicly, quietly overhauled its internal data access monitoring protocols. They implemented behavioral analytics on all privileged user accounts. They reduced the number of employees with broad, unmonitored data access 60%. Changes that should have existed before Jason ever opened that first USB drive. And the 300,000 people whose data was sold, they received letters, notifications, credit monitoring services. Some of them had already spent years cleaning up damage they didn't understand. Some of them are still dealing with it. Jason wasn't a genius hacker. He wasn't some shadowy figure operating from the dark web. He was the guy your bank trusted most, because he had been there the longest, because he knew the systems, because nobody thought to look at him. The biggest vulnerabilities in any system are almost never technical. They're human. If this story made you think, share it with someone who banks anywhere, which is everyone. And subscribe, because next week we're going inside another case that will make you look at your financial life very differently.